All right, well, I want to thank Andrew for inviting me and for St. John's for hosting this event. And Andrew asked me to talk about entrepreneurship and hustle. So I've got a few things on that, but I'm going to be talking about starting your own business, a few different things like that. One of the things I'm going to touch on is embracing failure. And then, building a legacy. Obviously, there's other guys here that are probably better suited to talk about it. Guys like Gary Martin here, I feel like he should be up here rather than me. When I saw him walk in, I was like, I think I'm going to get him up here, and I'll just sit back there and listen to what he has to say. But I'm going to talk, first thing I want to talk about is my first business failure. So, I was young, and my dad was the type of guy who would really push us as boys, as family members. He would push us into different things. And as a young man, I don't have my exact dates. Let's just say I was probably 8, 7 maybe. He got me into raising rabbits, meat rabbits for the New York City meat market. And so over a course of about 8 years, I raised rabbits. I got a decent chunk of cash out of it. And it was actually, for a young man, I had other things going on. I would gather my uncle's eggs, and I was working in the hog farm and just different things like that. So I was, if I wasn't in school, I was working basically from 6 a.m. until I went to school. In the afternoon, it was 4 o'clock to dinner, and then after dinner. But my first failure, in the midst of raising rabbits, a neighbor thought I should raise some mice. This neighbor, he had pet snakes, and he said there was a market for mice, for these pet snakes. So he thought that I should be able to raise these mice and sell them at pet supply places, pet stores, and things like that. So this is my first failure. I'm into this maybe 6 months, and I realize this is not a good idea. I have hundreds of mice in cages, and I can't sell these things, and they're getting out. And let me tell you, we had some mice around there that were no longer a true brown. They had white spots on them, and it wasn't from leprosy. Mice were getting out. They were breeding with the wild mice, and we were having white and brown mice around there. So we literally, I won't tell you how we got rid of them because the SPC would probably shut us down, but we will say it was a failure. My mom wasn't happy. There was white mice running around in the barn. It was bad. And then from a standpoint, that business failure kind of shaped. I had a few other small ones. I got into chuckers and guineas and other things during that young period of time where I learned that failure is not a bad thing. You learn a lot from failure. But some of you know probably the biggest failure that we had was the Lancaster Patriot newsprint, the printed newspaper. That one there was one where not only was it a humbling experience, it was also a costly one. That newspaper lost a lot of money. So I'm setting the tone with that. That failure in entrepreneurship, if you are the type of guy, like Steve talked about, if you have some money and you put $50 here and $100 here and $100 here, or $1 million, like he said, if you're a venture capitalist, you are going to lose. Some of that money is going to be lost. And that's where I want to set the tone for this. So, can I start my own business? There's a lot of young men here. Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Anybody. You can go out, get a hammer, air compressor, nailer. You can start your own business. You can do that tomorrow. But it's going to take courage. It's going to take courage. And you're going to need to understand that you are going to fail. You may not fail in your endeavor, but you will fail at some point. 1 in 3 small businesses fail in the first 2 years of operation. 1 in 3. 1 in 3 don't make it past 2 years. However, failure is not the final verdict. It's a teacher. It's something that will teach you. Many men, many of you guys are probably deterred from starting something because you see it as a personal reflection on ourselves. We do. We look at it and we say, wow, I failed. Pastor Joel talks about his hall of shame. We think of, oh man, this is a failure. People are going to look at me. I failed in starting this business. Get over it. Don't think so highly of yourself. A lesson from Scripture. Abraham, he was called to leave Ur. It says, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place where he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. Faith is going to help you. Abraham, to him, think of this. He's over here. Yes, he heard from God. Yes, it was, directly. But he picked up everything and he went to a new place. You could do the same thing. You're working at 7-Eleven behind the counter. You can pick yourself up and do something. Start your own thing if that's what you want to do. I'm not saying it's wrong to work at 7-Eleven, but Andrew didn't bring me here to talk about that. I'm not here to talk about working at 7-Eleven. I'm here to talk about starting your own business. So, in the same way that God told Abraham to step out of here, come over here, he might be telling you to step out in faith and start your own business. One of the things I always say is when you do this, and I'll talk a little bit about mentors later, but I'm going to bring it because I'm talking about Abram here, Lot. I look at Lot as Abraham's mentor. Lot, I think, looked at Abraham and said, well, I'm going to go with him. Uncle Abe, he's got a good thing going on here. But it didn't end as well for Lot. He didn't take Abraham's values with him when he went into Sodom and Gomorrah. So when I talk about mentors later on here, if I get to it, I'm running out of time already. One of the things with starting your own business is finding a mentor. Find someone who knows what it's like to be self-employed, who knows things about budgets, taxes, regulatory issues, and things you have no clue about. So think of it this way. When you go into self-employment, your goal is to succeed. It's to not fail. And so you want to make sure that you set yourself up, and a mentor is one of the ways to do it. So you might ask yourself, when's a good time to start? The correct answer is never. All right? That's where you're going to be. You're going to sit there, today's not a good time. I don't have the money. Tomorrow's not a good, you know what? It's probably never. So, I will tell you this, there is never a perfect time, but today is the time to start if you're thinking about it. One of the things, if you're married, you're going to want your wife's support. Those of us who have wives, who have spouses, you're going to want her support because you will be spending a lot of time and energy on this new endeavor. The ideal time to start is pre-marriage. I had that luxury. My father got me into something prior to being married, and I had the luxury to build on that platform. Marriage is something that is going to throw, I'm not going to say a wrench into the mix, but it is not as easy. So those of you young guys, do it now. Start before you're married. For those that are married with kids, it's going to increase significantly. You're going to have additional duties. You're going to have family responsibilities, home maintenance, church obligations. You're going to want to be a guy who is looking to Proverbs 20:13. Do not love sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, and you will be satisfied with bread. You're going to want to be a guy who rises early. You're going to want to be a guy who rejects that slumber that's warned about in Proverbs 20. And if you're one of those guys that wants to be at home when your family wakes up, you are going to want to wake up prior to that. Let's just say you're starting your own business. And let's say you're going to do, I don't know, lawn care. Probably one of the easiest things to get in, which I'm going to advise you not to. But I'll explain why. Sorry. But you're going to want to wake up early. You're going to want to get your administrative duties done early. Why do I say early? Because you're not going to be as sharp at 9 o'clock once everyone goes to bed. You're going to want to do it before you get out there and do your other things. You're going to want to learn those things about the finances, all those things that the administrative part of it. Let's say you're a one-man show. This is what I'm talking about right now. It's a new thing. And then the other thing is sacrificing time. Unlike the 9-to-5 job, this side hustle or this hustle that you're going to start, this job that you're going to start, it's going to demand discipline. It's going to demand sacrifice of both time and comfort. One of the things that when it comes to starting your own business, everyone thinks, man, this is great. I can take off when I want. I can go to the soccer game when I want. I can go to band practice. I can do whatever I got to do. I'm going to have the time to do that, right? Yeah, guess again. So sacrificing time and your comfort is going to be one of those things you're going to want to give up, especially early on. One of the other things I always say about working for yourself, it's lonely. When you're at the top, whether you're at the top of a 10-person company or, 500 employees, you're always going to have opposition. There's going to be someone there, one of those employees, someone is going to critique how you do things. It's lonely. And one of the things that you're going to find out is you're going to need to make those decisions on the fly. Every minute counts when you're self-employed, and it requires immense discipline. A discipline that I'm still cultivating. And others may look at you. They might see you as callous, judgmental, or even rude. But very often, when you're in that business setting, you're thinking about 5 or 6 different things. Someone will walk up to you and ask you something, and you're like, yep, go. They're like, that's all I get? That's all that happens? So it's one thing to think about, is self-employment isn't always one of those things that you or I, yes, we need to cultivate building relationships with those employees, but there's oftentimes there's a lot of things going on. And so when you're at the top, you tend to be more decisive, and that's what your leadership in your company is going to need. You're going to need to be able to make quick and confident decisions. We get into situations, and it can be on the phone with a customer, it can be an issue with a product, and the last thing that customer is going to want to see is indecisiveness. As the leadership, your employees don't want to see indecisive. They don't want you to sit there and say, well, we did this. Well, that's not a good idea. And you sit there for 2 or 3 hours and you try to figure, I'm not saying that's not sometimes the case, but very often, a lot, for me especially, I'll sit in on maybe a tech support call. You have 3 minutes at the max to analyze that, figure out what you're going to do, and do something. And very often, you might be doing something that's going to cost you money. You can make the choice of inconveniencing the customer and save you money, or doing the right thing, taking care of the customer. So, quick decisions. And oftentimes, that's something that you're going to want to ask for wisdom from the Lord. James 1:5 talks about that, and it's asking, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to them. So you want to be a man who is looking at what does the Bible say about taking care of your neighbor, making sure that you're doing justice, acting justly towards your neighbor. And a lot of times those decisions are snap decisions. So you want to be thinking about these constantly. Clients expect leadership. That is one of the things you're going to want to remember. Your clients are going to expect you to make a decision. Important. And then you have to go with it. What if it's the wrong decision? Adapt, change, make it right. You're going to make mistakes. It happens. I would say, on average, I'm sure there's better business guys out there than me, but I would say I make one every day. I should have handled that differently. I should have said something differently. I should have taken care of that customer better. That is business. You are going to run into that all the time, but you want to learn from it. You want to take it. Self-employment. There's a lot of advantages. A lot. Job is a prime example. I believe Job's wealth allowed him to do a lot of good. A lot of Job is about his discourse. But we see early on that Job was a man, he was out in the gates, he was a businessman, he had thousands of animals. He was very wealthy. And I believe he took that wealth and he went out and he helped his neighbor. He was a just man, he was a righteous man. We have that. The Bible tells us that. And I believe if you've been blessed with wealth, then do what you can in that same manner. I think Job is a prime example of what we should be looking towards when it comes to being businessmen. And I believe the advantages of being self-employed is it does allow you to make those decisions rather than just working a 9-to-5 job where your median income might go up 3-4% a year. I'm not saying that we're all cut out to be businessmen, all right? But if you have a desire to be self-employed, to be an entrepreneur, then go for it, okay? Try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Job. So, a Christ-centered vision, I believe, is what we need as businessmen. When you combine that with financial means, it allows you to be a positive impact in the community around you. I'm not saying that we're always perfect. Many of us aren't. We're imperfect human. Many of us we're no different than everyone else out there. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. But I do believe it allows you to have more of an impact in the community around you if you have that mindset of building something and building a legacy and financial stability. Pitfalls. There's no downtime. Even I would say this. You go to a church function or you go to you go to a baseball game. You get two business guys. They're constantly talking. You continue to learn. Oh, my word. Sorry. All right, I'm going to have to... So, there is genuine... So, for me, we're a small company, 10 people, all right? Who's going to... We shut down between Christmas and New Year. Who's going to take care of tech support? Anybody want to guess? Go for it. So, you could say if you're a one-man show or you're a 10-man show, maybe if you're a 20-man show, you can maybe have a dedicated tech support. but I'm one of those guys that, well, I feel bad making one person work over Christmas, right? If everyone else is going to take off, shouldn't he have off? Isn't that the right thing to do to your employees? So, juggling family, clients, all of those things, it is going to take a multifaceted view of where all of these things are coming at you. So if you're thinking about self-employment, that's what you want to have. You want to have the blinders off, and as all this information comes in, you want to be able to make fast decisions. One other thing I did want to touch on is managing clients. You're always going to have clients that are a pain. You're going to have those clients that they're difficult. They're jerks. You might need to cater to some of them in the beginning, but get rid of them as soon as you can. Focus on what you can do. Get rid of those toxic clients if you can. So if you're starting new, you're starting in that lawnmower business, whatever you're doing, you might need to take some of those on. But as you grow, try to get rid of them for your own sanity. The other thing that I really wanted to touch on is partnering and hiring employees. So having a partnership, make sure a one-man show is tough. I'm going to say that because it's you. It often leads to burnout. There's a lot of things when you as one person, it's just one person, you're doing something and you keep, let's just say it's only you. Everything comes back and you're going to get burned out. So do you hire part-time? There's a lot of different ways you can go there, things to think about. So, I apologize. I thought I had this down in 15 minutes. I really do apologize, but I'm going to have to cut this short. So, I guess to recap, entrepreneurship, there's always risk. But if you hustle, if you think with a lot of things, with an open mind, take the blinders off, things are coming at you, and you're able to dissect, those are some of the important things that you want to do. So, call to action. Start small. Start before you're married if you can. Find a mentor. Trust God through your failures. And step out boldly and go where you want to go. The other thing is, success is not perfection. A long way from perfection. Again, I look at Gary Martin, Ryan, many others, and I'm like, they've got it figured out. I don't. So, I want to leave you with Proverbs 16:3. Commit all your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. I believe it's important because if you give your works to the Lord, I believe that He will help you figure out as those decisions are coming at you, as you're starting your own journey, whether it's entrepreneurship or whatever you're doing. But I say this, go for it. Do it today, and do it to the Lord.
So we have a few minutes to, that's not indicating our lunchtime, that's just the fire.
Is that lunch?
Almost. So do you have any questions or feedback or comments for Dave? Yep, run the mic back to you.
Do you think, in thinking about starting your own business, there's a level of professionalism and excellence that everyone should consider? And the reason why I ask is especially like the post-COVID era, there's guys that just like really want to go out on their own, do their thing. But the question I always ask is like, what's the service that you're going to actually offer to your clients? Is it going to be good? So do you think it's important to think about that, just a level of excellence that you should have?
So I had some of that in here as far as I skipped the whole part on valuing your work and managing your clients. So I do believe that I could start a lawn mowing business or a lawn care business tomorrow. But if I am just like the other guy down the street and I'm stereotyping lawn care businesses, that hires 4 drug addicts, 2 potheads and 2 cokeheads. They're in and out of prison. They're there for a month, and then they're back in the slammer. I do believe you will not be able to differentiate yourself. And so when you do something, yes, you want to be service, quality, keep your word. Those are very important aspects. Whether it's as simple as your invoice, having an invoice that looks good. Those are important aspects, yes. When you do something, you want to do it well and you want to do it unto the Lord. And I believe, whether it's art, whether it's business, or whatever it is, we should try to do that. I was talking with someone last night. He wants his vehicles to look a certain way, right? So he bought a vehicle, but he's not going to put his logo on it because he doesn't want that one associated. That's not a bad idea. Because there's a certain perception. It's not saying he's not going to use it, but there's a certain perception that you want, and you want to do it well unto the Lord. I'm not saying you're wrong to drive a ratty truck that's rusted around. I have one of those. I have a beater. I use it. I throw mulch on it. It's my beater truck. But I probably wouldn't take that one to visit a $100,000 client. So yeah, I do believe there is something to that. One of the other things, just real quick, find something that, if you are thinking of entrepreneurship, and I pick on the lawn care guys because it is easy to get into. And if anyone's here with a lawn care, there's no offense mean by it, all right? I'm not trying to knock you on that. But pick something that has a higher barrier to get in, like welding, machining, things that have higher barriers, and your competition levels are going to drop dramatically. So that's one thing to think about when you're starting your own business.
I think one of the common things I hear with entrepreneurs or men starting to provide for their family is, hey, you got to be willing to do those 80, 100-hour weeks, and they end up providing for their family but never seeing their family. How do you hit that right balance between the two?
Well, if you can do it before you're married, you've got to start on that. But I think that's where waking up early comes into play. Some of the businessmen that I look up to, they're up at 4 o'clock in the morning. They're at work at 4:30. And they get more done in the first 4 hours before all the other noise starts up. They get more done between 4:30 and 8:30 than most of us get done from 8 to 5. I think that's an important aspect, is being willing. Don't think too highly of your sleep. The 100 hours, yes, I've done those. There comes a certain point where you have to say, you know what, I'm going to have to hire a part-time person, or I'm going to have to sub some of this out. And that's where, don't sell yourself too short. If you're starting a business, make sure you've got your time. Make sure you've got your equipment, your parts, pieces, whatever's going into it. Make sure you're covered. Don't undersell yourself. I see that with too many people. Recently, I was talking to another businessman who had a steer. He put a heifer stall or a steer barn on his property, and he told me about the company that did it. The head guy was charging like $29 an hour, and I'm like, I don't know how you could do that. $29 an hour and this is the top dog of the company, I'm like, you're undervaluing yourself at that point. So don't undervalue yourself. Again, it comes down to finding, if you can, a business where the entry level, the barrier to enter that certain business is higher. I think is the important part of starting your own business.
We have some guys who are 12 years old in here, maybe a little bit younger, 12, 15, 18-year-old. What are some of the disciplines that you can start cultivating while you're still living at home if you have a mind to maybe work for yourself, or you've seen people who are entrepreneurial, that looks good. So what is it? But it's not for everybody, like you said. So aside from it, there's kind of two questions there. Honest assessment of whether this is for you, and that might be something that you have to come to later on in life, or a few years down the road. But what are some disciplines that these young guys need to actually be taking up if they want to end up, their own boss?
Well,
You said like wake up early, and that could help.
well, like I said, is there anyone here who has a lawn care business? Because I want to quit knocking on you. I quit knocking on you. But, so I talk about the lawn care industry, right? Because it is something where someone can go out and buy a lawnmower and start hustling. Yes. And that, if you're 12, 18, you've got neighbors. Let's say you live right here in Friedensburg. You've got neighbors that I guarantee you would pay you to do that. It's a little harder today because of child labor laws and all the other issues that are out there. But things like that, if you live in a city, if you live out in the country and you have a little bit of land, there are meat markets in New York City. There's a couple different companies in central Pennsylvania that do a weekly trip to New York. And they're taking rabbits up there. They're taking guineas up there, chuckers, silkies. There's things like that. There's a ton of things that you can do. But again, it's a mindset thing. I think it's a mindset. You've got to change from the idea of, I'm going to get rich doing this, to I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to build off of my mistakes. I'm going to keep building. I think that's what most of us, we don't think of it that way. We don't think of going into this endeavor and I'm going to learn and I'm going to gather information. I'm going to keep learning every day. It's more like, I'm going to go into this, I'm going to get rich, right? Because Jim Bob got rich doing it. I think that's where we get hung up. So just do it. Just do it. Go to Lowe's, buy yourself a lawnmower, and get started. Go for it. What's stopping you? Guys, what's stopping you? No, I'm saying. Sorry.
The demands of starting your own business they're tremendous, and the amount of work that's needed to be able to do that at the beginning is tremendous. How do you work in the Sabbath in the middle of all that?
How do you work in the Sabbath?
Yeah, it's how do you observe the Sabbath? Yeah, it's 7 days isn't really enough, but if I'm to dedicate one to God and rest on that day, kind of minimizes. So how have you overcome just the temptation to work through this?
Well, so my pastor's here, and he tells a story. He tells a story of he was going to a church. As an older gentleman, he was a dairy farmer. So obviously, you've got to work. You've got to milk cows on Sundays. But this guy, he used to come to church. My pastor says he fell asleep every Sunday. But he was such a blessing to Joel because he showed up. He was at church, but he was dead tired. Now I'm not gonna give Joel the the satisfaction of saying whether I fell asleep at church or not. But I do believe that if you pour your energy into it, Monday through Saturday, like I said, waking up early. Quick story. When I went on my own in 2007, so my brother and I had a partnership prior to that. When I went on my own in 2007, I'm not saying I recommend anyone do this, but I was sleeping between 4 to 6 hours a night for probably a year and a half before I felt like I could afford to hire another employee. And what was I doing? I wasn't married, so all I had to do was, kick my feet under mom's table. She would feed me. What was I doing the other 18 to 20 hours? I was working. And Sundays, it typically, you walk away from it.